You just floated through the hatch of the International Space Station, and somewhere back on Earth, a press release describes your new home as a world-class research facility where astronauts conduct groundbreaking science in the serenity of low Earth orbit. Nobody mentions the 3-foot blowtorch that erupted in the module next to yours, or the drill hole someone punched through your return capsule, or the crack in the hull that NASA rates as maximum likelihood of catastrophic failure. 25 years of continuous habitation, and the promotional footage never changes. Astronauts floating gracefully, Earth glowing blue through the cupola, science experiments producing breakthroughs. What gets cut is everything else, and everything else is what kills you. The fires, the toxic leaks, the hull breaches. The moment your ride home breaks and you become a castaway 420 kilometers above the planet with no rescue scheduled. That's before talking about the planned 2030 decommissioning. Before we count the ways this station can kill you, understand the death triangle first. Every emergency up here delivers one of 3 outcomes: slow suffocation, rapid decompression, or stranded indefinitely. Some threats hit one category, and the worst ones hit all 3. Every single threat on this list has already produced real incidents aboard this station or its predecessor. This is the fine print on living in orbit, so let's count them down. Number 7, the shooting gallery. Your new home flies through a cloud of bullets traveling 10 times faster than a rifle round, and that cloud gets thicker every year. 36,500 tracked objects, larger than 10 centimeters orbit in your neighborhood right now, alongside 500,000 marble-sized fragments, and 130 million pieces smaller than a millimeter. The station moves at 28,000 kilometers per hour, which turns a paint fleck into a hypervelocity projectile on impact. A chip of debris the size of your fingernail hits with more energy than a hand grenade. It's called the Kessler syndrome, a 1978 prediction by Donald Kessler that posits density of low Earth objects could become so great that a single collision would trigger a chain reaction, creating a cascade of space debris. Station shields, like a Whipple shield, stop debris up to 1.3 centimeters in diameter, and anything larger punches through. Anything above 10 centimeters would shatter the station into fragments. And here's the gap that should keep you awake at night. Objects between 1 and 10 centimeters are too small to track, but large enough to kill you. 500,000 of them circle Earth right now, and nobody knows exactly where they are. May 2021. Something in that gap punched a 5mm hole clean through the Canadarm2 robotic arm, a boom just 35 centimeters wide. Had that object drifted 2 meters to the left, it would have hit a pressurized module instead of a robot arm. That's not the worst part. December 2022, a micrometeoroid punctured the radiator of a docked Soyuz spacecraft and vented all its coolant into space. NASA astronaut Frank Rubio found himself stranded for 371 days while Roscosmos scrambled to launch a replacement vehicle. One tiny rock added 371 days to his mission, and that's the death triangle in action: vehicle damage, potential stranding, and zero margin for error. Here's the kicker. Conjunction events with the ISS reached 1,486 in 2022, a 233% increase from the previous year. The debris field grows denser, while the shields stay exactly the same. Russian modules carry protection approximately 5 times thinner than the American segments. Guess which modules have actually been hit? Still feeling safe? Debris kills fast, but the next threat kills slow, and it starts the moment you fall asleep. Number 6. The air that's already poisoning you. Nobody mentions this in the recruitment materials, but the air inside the ISS runs toxic by Earth standards, even on a good day. CO2 levels sit between 3,000 and 7,000 parts per million up here. Earth's atmosphere runs at 400. You're breathing air 10 to 20 times more contaminated than anything you've experienced on the ground, and your body registers that even when your conscious mind doesn't. A study of 49 astronauts found that for every 1 millimeter of mercury increase in CO2, the odds of reporting a headache doubled. 2 crew members reported that slightly elevated levels left them unable to perform their duties, and the official term for that is cognitive impairment. The practical term is you're getting dumber every day, and you might not notice it happening. And this is where it gets worse. Microgravity prevents CO2 from rising and dispersing the way it does on Earth, which means it pools instead. A ventilation fan failure near your sleeping quarters means you wake up surrounded by a bubble of your own exhaled poison, and that's assuming you wake up at all. NASA's own documentation states that scrubber failures are not uncommon, and the system carries a long history of unplanned maintenance as well as obsolete core components. Obsolete is the word NASA chose for the machine keeping you breathing. September 2004, oxygen partial pressure dropped to just 1.7 millimeters of mercury above minimum survivable levels, with projections showing the station would breach its lower limit within 7 days. June 2007, a computer failure knocked out oxygen generation and CO2 scrubbing simultaneously. Slow suffocation sits in the first corner of the death triangle, but at least suffocation gives you time to solve the problem. Fire doesn't give you anything. Number 5. Fire that doesn't behave. Every astronaut describes fire as their most feared emergency, and the physics explain why nothing you know about flames applies up here. Microgravity prevents fire from rising, so it forms spheres instead. It burns blue at temperatures below what you can see. Oxygen reaches the flame only through molecular diffusion without convection, which means it spreads slowly but persistently in every direction simultaneously. And here's the cruel joke. When oxygen drops below levels that would extinguish a normal flame, microgravity fires refuse to go out. They break into smaller flamelets that persist like embers, waiting for conditions to improve so they can reignite. NASA discovered something even worse during experiments on the station. Extinguished fuel can spontaneously reignite as invisible cool flames, combustion happening without visible light. You could stand next to a fire and never know it until the flames spread. The nightmare scenario already played out once. February 1997, Mir space station, a solid fuel oxygen generator erupted into a 3-foot blowtorch, spraying molten metal and sparks. 6 crew members fought for 14 minutes in smoke so thick they couldn't see their own hands. The flame blocked the escape route to one of the Soyuz capsules, and some respirators failed to supply oxygen. One astronaut described watching what he thought was melting wax hit the wall before realizing it was molten metal dripping from the ceiling. The cause turned out to be a latex glove fragment that had contaminated the oxygen canister. That's all it took. A 2018 study found that ISS smoke detectors frequently fail to detect particles from Teflon and Kapton, the materials most extensively used in station electronics. The detection system carries a blind spot for the exact materials most likely to catch fire. One more detail that stood out during research: the Soyuz capsule contains no fire extinguishers at all, and the official procedure for a Soyuz fire is to close your helmet, depressurize the entire spacecraft, and hope vacuum kills the flames before it kills you. Fire needs ignition to start, but the next threat already flows through the walls, waiting for a crack. Number 4. The ammonia next door. Thousands of pounds of anhydrous ammonia circulate through pipes just outside your pressurized habitat right now. 300 parts per million earns the classification, immediately dangerous to life. 2,500 parts per million kills you in 30 minutes. The gas corrodes tissue on contact, attacks your eyes and lungs simultaneously, and in the sealed station atmosphere, it has nowhere to dissipate except into you. Ammonia stays outside under normal operations, but it transfers heat to your internal cooling system through shared walls called interface heat exchangers. One crack in those walls and ammonia enters your air supply. January 2015. 4 in the morning. Flight controllers detected pressure readings consistent with exactly that scenario. The crew donned breathing apparatus, shut down ventilation, and evacuated to the Russian segment. Fluctuating readings forced them to evacuate twice in 11 hours. A malfunctioning computer card turned out to be the culprit. It had generated readings that mimicked a textbook ammonia leak so precisely that everyone followed emergency protocol exactly as designed. The false alarm proved the system works, but it also proved the monitoring system can cry wolf convincingly enough to trigger full evacuation, which means you can never fully trust a negative reading either. External leaks have been chronic and documented. White flakes of ammonia, snow streaming into space, emergency spacewalks to replace failed pump assemblies. One commander called it a serious situation, and the welds holding ammonia out of your lungs carry a documented track record of failing. The hull itself fails faster than any of them. Number 3. The cracks in the hull. Right about now, some of you might be thinking these are old Russian systems, Soviet-era hardware with decades of wear. The American modules are newer, so they're probably fine. Here's what that optimism is worth. Zvezda service module has been leaking air since September 2019, progressively worsening from 0.2 pounds per day to a peak of 3.7 pounds daily in April 2024, the highest rate ever recorded on the station. NASA's risk management system elevated it to 5 out of 5 on their scale, meaning maximum likelihood of occurrence combined with maximum consequence of outcome. Inspections identified over 50 areas of concern, 4 confirmed cracks, and 588 parts overdue for replacement. Here's the fine print that should terrify you. NASA and Roscosmos cannot agree on whether continued operations remain safe. One former astronaut summarized the standoff this way: "The Russians believe it's safe, but can't prove it, and the Americans believe it's dangerous, but can't prove that either." The compromise keeps the tunnel hatch closed, except during transfers, and closes the hatch between American and Russian segments overnight. theoretically containing a catastrophic failure to the Russian side. Theoretically. Zvezda's core structure came together in the mid-1980s for a station that never got completed, making it over 40 years old. That same module provides the only propulsion for orbital reboost on the entire station. Lose Zvezda, and the station enters an uncontrollable tumble, deorbiting within 2 years. You're living inside a cracking aluminum tube from the Reagan administration, and the two agencies responsible for keeping you alive can't agree how bad the cracks actually are. Number 2. Dying 17 hours from the nearest hospital. The ISS medical kit contains an ultrasound machine, a defibrillator, some IV equipment, and basic suture materials. No X-ray machine, no CT scanner, no blood bank, no ventilator. Nothing resembling intensive care. The crew medical officer receives approximately 25 hours of training and typically works as an engineer rather than a physician. SpaceX Crew Dragon takes 10 to 17 hours from undocking to splashdown. Soyuz manages roughly 3.5 hours to Kazakhstan. Neither vehicle can depart instantly, and after landing, you still need helicopter transfer to reach a hospital. A ruptured appendix, stroke, or massive heart attack means this timeline becomes incompatible with survival. 2019, an astronaut turned up with a blood clot in their jugular vein, discovered purely by accident during a research ultrasound. The station carried limited blood thinner supplies, and the only outside specialist consulted asked if he could visit the station to examine the patient himself. NASA told him they couldn't get him there quickly enough. That astronaut rationed injectable medication for 40 days until oral blood thinners arrived on a cargo ship. A follow-up study examined 11 crew members and found 6 of them showing stagnant or retrograde blood flow in their jugular veins, suggesting the problem occurs far more commonly than a single case implies. The January 2026, the ISS experienced its first medical evacuation in over 25 years of continuous habitation. NASA described the situation as a medical issue in the difficult area of microgravity and with the suite of hardware available to complete a diagnosis. Translation: the station's diagnostic capabilities couldn't handle whatever condition presented itself. One medical emergency stands between you and learning whether your body can survive the time it takes to reach help. And if your ride home breaks, you're not reaching help at all. Number 1. When your ride home breaks. The ISS carries no escape pods. Your lifeline consists of a specific seat on a specific spacecraft docked at a specific port, and when that spacecraft fails, you become a castaway until someone sends a replacement. June 2024, 2 astronauts named Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams launched aboard Boeing's Starliner for a planned 8-day test mission. 5 of 28 thrusters failed during approach and multiple helium leaks appeared. NASA concluded the capsule couldn't safely return them, so it flew home empty while they waited for SpaceX to reconfigure a vehicle with 2 empty seats. Splashdown finally came after 286 days in space, 35 times longer than the mission plan called for. The previous year's Stranding lasted even longer. A micrometeoroid punctured Soyuz MS-22's radiator in December, and cabin temperatures during re-entry would have reached 104 degrees Fahrenheit. Unsurvivable. The astronaut waited approximately 10 weeks for Roscosmos to launch a replacement and finally returned after 371 days, 185 days longer than planned. October 2014 through June 2015, 3 cargo missions failed in 8 months and destroyed over 7,000 kilograms of supplies. NASA's own analysis projected food reserves hitting 0 by September 5, 2015, if resupply hadn't resumed in July. Resupply arrives approximately every 45 days, and water recycling achieves 98% recovery. Oxygen generation theoretically runs indefinitely. Food cannot be recycled or manufactured aboard the station, making it the hard constraint on survival, and the supply chain has proven it can break 3 times in 8 months. The fine print. That's the reality of your new home. You sleep in a pressurized tube flying through a shooting gallery while breathing air NASA describes as chronically elevated. Fire behaves in ways that took decades to understand and might still surprise the people fighting it. Ammonia runs through walls that have already leaked. The hull cracks at rates 2 space agencies can't agree are acceptable. Your ride home might break and strand you for a year, and if you get seriously sick, the nearest hospital sits 17 hours away, assuming your vehicle still works. 15 years of operational life went into the original design. 25 years of continuous habitation have passed since then, with decommissioning targeted for 2030. The Russian core module contains aluminum forged when Reagan sat in the White House, and ECLSS life support systems run on components NASA calls obsolete. That's the fine print, everything living between the launch celebration and the homecoming press conference. You just moved into a machine running on borrowed time, maintained by people doing extraordinary work within constraints, pushing against their limits. What's the next cosmic death sentence you want the fine print on?